they get the chance. They were born in bloody circumstance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. A voice from the underground, given room to breathe, not be drowned. So die if you get the chance. Better men than you've been let this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, leave me, run like you've never run before.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Pod, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. Welcome to some of the, or is not some of, the worst people in the world of rugby, and also
The
hyenas,
worst people in the world of rugby.
the worst people in the world of rugby, and also hyenas sculling around, causing trouble where we can feed off others' misfortunes and touting lies and misconceptions. That may be the best description we've ever had of this podcast. I think it's fairly spot on. We're having a wonderful time on twitter.com.
Oh,
It has to be said
so
this
much
World
fun.
Cup. There's so much fun to be had when you just let it go. And joining me this evening, the man who also has the login to our Twitter account, it's Johnny McGinty. Good evening, Johnny.
Hello, good evening. Do you know what the problem is? That we were just talking about schools are on strike up here, but I'm still working because it's support staff who are on strike, so the schools are closed. And I've spent all week thinking, what am I going to do sitting on my own in my class for 3 days? Turns out, just go on Twitter a lot.
Just go on Twitter and wind everybody up. It's like the easiest fishing you've ever done. It's like literally fishing with dynamite. That's what we're doing on Twitter. Also joining us this evening, we've got Craig Manson. Craig, welcome. Due to be 5 minutes late, we were hoping to get all the Ember news out the way, or John was, but you've made it just in time.
I'm out of breath because I sprinted up to my office so that I could get in here just in case John Anderson decided that. But the funny thing about it is that when you're describing how we've been described on Twitter, I thought he was talking about Glasgow Warriors fans. But anyway, that's a different story.
I mean, indirectly, it was.
There was an interesting. Speaking of fans, there was a good thing on somebody sent directly to us on Twitter this evening, John Anderson, which was a clip of some Australians doing a podcast saying that the Welsh fans are some of the best winners you can ever hope to meet. Which I don't think I've ever done a double take at watching a video before like that.
So, I mean, that probably sums up everything that's wrong about Australian rugby then, because clearly that there's something wrong with these people. Because have you met a Welshman who's won? They are dreadful. They've always been dreadful. It's no thank
I mean, if they were talking about specifically last weekend, they have been waiting for that for a while. So maybe they were just really relieved.
I think Australians are some of the worst at the wind-ups, though. They're
terrible.
To be fair, you don't tend to get many of them in your mentions misunderstanding or arguing with you, but equally they just seem terrible at using social media to wind up people as well.
It's almost like it's the fifth choice sport in the country or something, and no one actually cares.
Do you know what the really weird thing is? The person who called us the worst people in world rugby because we were winding up the Welsh was South African.
Oh no, but I think that's a hangover. I think that's a hangover from 2 weeks ago where we were just on the wind up with the South Africans.
Yeah, possibly, I suppose. Because I was complaining to my Welsh pals about it, being like, "Look at this guy, come and get your mate," and they were like, "I've just checked his profile; he's South African."
But we've also there's a couple of Irish guys that keep coming back saying, "Why are you so obsessed with us?" It's like you're in our pool.
Yeah, because we have to beat you to get to quarterfinals.
We've got somebody on YouTube saying people didn't get nearly as upset when we were a Bluey fan club. Less of the were.
That's true. Yeah. Oh yeah. We have to be fair. We've strayed a bit from Bandits Light recently because I don't think he'd be as mean on Twitter as we are.
Have you seen that? Right. We've also, certainly Johnny, you and I have seen the State of Union episode of Bluey. There's no way that Bandit Healer is not on Twitter on a constant. Bandit Healer is absolutely constantly on Twitter on the wind up with opposition fans.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, actually. Yeah. In fact, he runs to his door to shout at the Kiwis, doesn't he? So
he does, except for your mate Mackenzie. Yeah. That makes it sound like we're terrible people in real life. Of course, we're not. We're terrible people on social media. We're fine in real life.
Yeah.
Well,
Harley, to be fair, Harley spotted that because Harley, who is Welsh and knows us quite well, says whoever's been running the Twitter account has been on top form. So he clearly knows what's going on. It's the Johnny come latelys who have turned up to the World Cup and decided that they know better. Just like bite your hand off instantly.
Hang on, shock news. People on Twitter don't have a sense of humour.
I think the problem. Do you know what the problem is? We've got no content to share, right? Because we're not allowed to share anything from the World Cup. Because World Cup basically will shut down anyone's account who shares anything that they don't have permission to or they haven't paid for rights to. So this is what happens, right? I'd love to be. What I'd like to do is to clip Darcy's beautiful run against Tonga together and put it to some music, or I don't know, make a funny meme out of a Finn Russell expression, but I can't because we'll have the account set down. So all I'm left with is winding everybody else up.
Oh, it's a beautiful time to be alive.
I'm just so much looking forward to our Six Nations trip to see Scotland v Wales in Cardiff. That's going to be fabulous.
In Cardiff with the two guys that run the Twitter account, Craig. Me and Johnny are going to get branded podcast branded t-shirts.
Yeah. And the good news is, on top of that, at least we're not going with Steph, who runs Rock and Roll and has been instrumental in signal boosting all of our winding up of the Welsh. So he'll not be there as well to thank everyone.
To then point us out to everybody.
Hey, look who I brought.
Harley says, is there any footage of Duhan getting jump scared? We're not allowed to, but we don't have any footage of anything. At one point, I did consider reenacting some of the high tackles from this weekend using my kids' dolls. And I remember primarily this is an audio format, so it was very.
Are we allowed to share like Scotland stuff? Because have they got stuff in camp?
They've got the in-camp stuff, but the problem is I don't. No, we've got a policy of not sharing anything official from the SRU until they allow transgender women to fully participate in rugby again.
Yeah, and we're
The
we're
moment
also
they do,
waiting on the.
I'll happily share any official content from the Edinburgh, Glasgow, or SRU account, but until that point, we're not amplifying it.
And here's me waiting to see Dave Cherry going down the stairs on a tea tray.
Allegedly.
There has to be footage of that somewhere.
There has to be.
Why don't because
Yeah,
because I obviously look like him and I'm just
Oh, we could recreate it. That's a great
I-
idea.
I've got stairs outside. I could go and get a tea tree and I'll
Not with the state of your hip, John Anderson.
well, yeah, that's fair. The outcome's
I was hoping you were going to wait on me coming through so I could push you.
And hang on, who do you play in this recreation? What do you know that we don't know?
I'm Stuart McInally. I'm the Stuart McInally Johnny Matthews supporter.
That's how he did his neck.
Yeah.
Pushing Dave Cherry down the stairs.
Every hooker's looking behind him at this
I
point.
was going to kick off a new feature last week during the Patreon, but I had to shoot off a little bit early unexpectedly, which was what hurts this week, given our ages. So we were going to regularly just report on what's hurting this week. In honor
I
of
thought you
you,
were going to
John.
say, what cars do the Scotland players drive? Because we finished that.
Oh, yeah, no,
In
that,
your
that,
absence,
that,
we got through the whole 23.
that was a great hand grenade, Cam, through our well just as he was leaving, wasn't it?
Yeah.
100%.
Anyway, should we talk about some rugby?
Go for it.
Go on then.
Let's catch up about news. We'll do some. Ben Vellacott's been appointed as co-captain for Edinburgh. Craig.
Yeah. Sorry, I got the
Yeah.
news. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think. Well, obviously, it looks like he's going to be the one of the leading, the leading nine on the park. From if they're going to name him co-captain. There's lots of pictures of Scott Steele at the moment going around, and him and his backwards facing Edinburgh cap. I thought John Anderson would be breaking down the doors.
Yeah, big fan of that. Big fan of that.
So it looks like we're going to see more Benji. But to be honest, that's really good. He's a great player. Really, really happy with him staying at the Hive, and also really happy to see him as co-captain. Should be good.
Glasgow wise, John, you've got no players left. Everyone's injured, and now Johnny Matthews has been called up for Scotland.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We've got a pre-season kicking. The pre-season friendlies kicking off. So I'm pretty sure that with my sore hip, I'm not going to get a call up, but I wouldn't count on it. Like I might give 20 minutes. I'm free this weekend. Probably do
12 members of the squad are out with injury.
Yeah, it's the squad's been. It's funny because they've been doing. Tom Jordan has been doing the pre-season diary thing, and he's just been talking about how well the boys have been going and all this, and everyone's kind of like, "What boys? Like no one's training. They're all injured. No one's. Is Tom literally just the only guy running about himself just now? I think he must be. And actually, he's talking about everyone, but actually, it just means." I'm training really well. I'm running brilliant, doing PBs, all that jazz, because it's only me. Full access to the coaching staff himself. Beautiful.
Johnny, are you happy with the state of Glasgow at the minute? No worries that give half the squad away with Scotland and half the squad in the physio room?
Do you know what? Does it I'm struggling to decide whether it matters or not. It's a pre-season game against Zebra on Friday night.
Should still
half our team, we knew half our team was missing anyway. I'm not gonna we might lose. Oh well. As long as they're fit by the time the URC starts and the World Cup squad comes back, then it doesn't really matter.
Well,
as far as I can see.
There's
the URC starts in March or something, doesn't it? Because of the World Cup.
I think it starts sooner than that.
It starts the week before the final. The 22nd of October it starts.
Yeah.
So they're assuming
and
the
our
Irish
first game's
teams are not.
against Leinster.
So they're
Glasgow's first game's against Leinster, so we'll both be full strength for that.
Yeah, because they're assuming Ireland aren't making the final. Yeah, perfect. That's very good of the URC. They know these things. Bet the South African teams are not playing week one.
Johnny will go through and take in the full view of the game from Tory Boy Cafe that they've just announced as well, and he'll be quite happy at the Glasgow Warriors. That's it's very West End, I must say. Very West End.
What's this then?
Oh,
I've
the
missed
new
this.
cafe that they've the new vendors for Glasgow Warriors in Scotstoun. It's very nice with a specialty
There's a new
teas,
bar.
specialty lattes and mochas, and then the
Hang on a
burgers.
minute. This
the
coming from the
burgers-
boy whose team kept a winger on their books for 3 extra years just because he had a coffee truck outside, and you're
Hey,
genuinely
listen,
like to go after
just
us.
don't you worry about. We can still get a horse's patoot on with chips outside the dam. Well, the hive. Not a screamer, a scratcher, the pecker, the flapper, or peacock fries. Come on now, boys.
If you ever had screaming peacock before, it's really good.
There's the only thing is there's no quinoa on the
That's a shame, actually.
list, which
That's a
is a
shame.
real disappointment.
That's a
What's
shame.
quinoa? Is
Sorry?
it no quinoa? Is it no quinoa? That's how I always pronounced it.
Well, actually, when you're from Edinburgh, that's how you
He's-
pronounce it.
He's in his office pronouncing quinoa correctly, and yet I'm the Tory.
And did you notice Craig's got all his bills up in the board beside him as well tonight? He's like pure money grab. He's just like, I'm just going to put all my outgoings up here just to show
Absolutely.
the fans.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
if you have a wee further look, there is a Guinness World Record one there as well. Look at that! Oh, bravo! Yes.
What's that
the
for,
World's
Craig?
Toryist
angriest reaction to someone calling something Hoover.
Go on, give us your Guinness World Record then, Craig.
It's the world's largest pot of porridge.
What?
Wait, you ate it?
No, we made it. Cooper round table. Sounding more and more Tory every day.
Yeah, well, we just got together and made a big pot of porridge. Yes. So
Yes, absolutely.
Cooper round
Everybody-
table made a
everybody
big
plans
pot
for
of
the press.
porridge.
Along with obviously, if you if anyone knows about Cooper, that we have the Quaker Oats factory on the outskirts as well. So along with Quaker Oats, we made the
You
largest
didn't
pot
even
of
need to
porridge.
buy
So.
the oats. You didn't
I
even
cannot
need to-
No, it was
believe
all
that-
sponsored.
For once, we've managed to like name drop some companies on the public pod, and we like have a really bad habit of name dropping like beer companies and stuff behind the paywall. And the one person we've name dropped on the public pod to try and get a sponsorship is Quaker Oats.
They had a half naked.
Like, don't get me
Ross
wrong,
Ford
I
on
would
the-
take free porridge.
They had half naked Ross Ford on the packets for Raw, didn't they?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig wasn't allowed to open those ones.
I wasn't allowed near. I wasn't. They stopped me. They stopped me buying posters. It was ridiculous.
How did you make the porridge then? Was it water, salt, milk? What was in it?
It was water and oats, and then it was made in a large, a massive big pot, and then we mixed it over a period of time with the help of the fire brigade who gave us the water in Cooper, and then we made the porridge, and then it was transported up from the Highland Games that we're at in Cooper up to the Quaker Oats where we made it, and we had to wait on the.
Did you start eating it? Did you
We
crack
could.
it?
We had to eat it to show it was edible, but
It doesn't sound like it was, to be honest.
but considering the colour of the water that came out the fire engine's tanks, it wasn't fit for human consumption as such.
And can
so,
you confirm how many toes do you now have on each foot, Craig?
I was going to say he's got another Guinness Book of Records for the longest sat on a toilet.
Well, funnily enough, I didn't eat it, but no, it all went. So that the agreement was that it was going to go to feed animals, so that we're not wasting it. So it went to a pig farm and it was fed to the pigs. So, yeah.
Very
Fair
good.
enough.
There we go. Don't get that on our All Rugby podcast. Do you a Guinness World Record?
It's no longer. It's been beaten, unfortunately. But
Do you not have to hand back your certificate then?
I was going to say, yeah.
absolutely
Come on.
not. It tries it out my cold, dead hands.
I'm going to record this
like a
segment
true Tory.
next time he calls me a Tory.
How are you calling me a Tory? Come on now.
I think we should try it for a Guinness World Record of longest on a rugby podcast, not talking about rugby.
And that's a straight shootout between us and Blood and Mud.
I was
That
just about to
always
say,
be, yeah.
yeah.
Start learning a bit of DIY.
I think we could do it though. I think we could be strong.
I'm sure we could. Johnny Matthews, anyway. Let's get back to the rugby. Johnny Matthews is calling the Scotland squad. Johnny, you must be delighted.
Yeah, not before time. Johnny Matthews, the world's most deserving try machine. It's about time he was in the squad. He should have been there from the start. We finally
100%.
achieved justice for Johnny Matthews.
Can't wait
It's
for him
not-
to start against Romania and score 7 tries.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is there's here comes Johnny Matthews onto the park against Romania.
7 tries later, including 3 from his own 22.
Yeah,
He's just
kick to
taken a
the
pop
corner,
ball.
drive over. Kick to the corner, drive
no,
over.
no. It
Kick
doesn't
to the
always have
corner,
to be
drive
that.
over.
See,
It doesn't
The
know.
guy- the
To be
guy
fair, he
gets
does
wheels.
score. He does like a good charge as well. Does Johnny Matthews?
Yeah, but Alan Dell isn't here with him tonight. Isn't away in the Scotland squad.
And also, I'm fairly sure that it's probably going to be Ben Healy that starts against Romania. So, like, he can take penalties from our own 10-metre line and put them in the 5-metre. It's the perfect. Ben Healy and Johnny Matthews is the perfect combination for this game. We'll win 300-0.
We've talked a lot about how Gregor Townsend is playing on a different level to other coaches. Now, I wonder how much this was always planned. I think Stuart McAnally was always a bait and switch, right? He knew Dave Cherry, the whole Dave Cherry thing, right? Dave Cherry's wife.
It was him that pushed
due to
him.
give birth, right? Hear me out. Dave Cherry's wife's due to give birth, right? The whole he's slid down a set of stairs on a tea tray. That's a smoke screen for Dave Cherry going back to be with his wife, right? McAnally comes in as cover, gets a nice wee holiday in the south of France. Good way to announce the retirement. Johnny Matthews, rested for the first 2 games, gets a nice wee holiday in Fife, comes in fully ready to go at the end of the group stages. Right? You tell me that wasn't pre-planned by Gregor Townsend.
They've got
3D chess.
and there was an interview with McAnally at the airport shouting, I'm just a patsy.
Yeah. It's at the end where Gregor Townsend limps out of the press conference and then starts walking normally. That's when you know he's in the plan all along. No, I mean it's I think we said it was strange he hadn't been called up at the start, given his try scoring record, but good to see him in there now. Should we talk about the Tonga match, or should we talk about Ireland South Africa? What's the best? Should we do? Let's get Tonga out of the way.
Let's go Tonga. Yeah, go for it.
John,
Yes.
for me, I never really thought that Scotland were going to lose, and I never really thought that we weren't going to stick a load of tries past them. I think the frustrating thing is there were moments where Scotland lacked a bit of composure. I think the kind of random kind of kick that Finn Russell kicked away in our own 22 that then led to the second Tonga try was disappointing. There were a lot of at the end, we got a bit frantic, trying to maybe kind of stick a few points on them. And I mean, ultimately, the score wasn't too different to what Ireland did against Tonga, but I think there's points that Scotland can take from that.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. I think individual errors crept in, and it wasn't a coherent performance. It wasn't a great performance. You're absolutely right. I don't think it was ever in doubt. Even, it was a 7-point game at one point, and even at that point, I don't think anyone were really that worried or concerned. I think Scotland, they'll have been really frustrated by that. And yeah, the result was good, but I think Tonga played, for all the chat about how poor Tonga were against Ireland, I thought Tonga were twice as poor against Scotland. I think they showcased all the worst bits of Tongan rugby. And it's funny that, they brought all these former All Blacks back into the fold, and yet they still love a cheap shot. They still love a high hit. They still love indiscipline like it's going out of fashion. And Scotland, I think the first half I saw it, like towards the end of the first half, it was Scotland had conceded 1 penalty and Tonga had conceded 4. Now, that first half was not a 5 penalty first half. There was literally hundreds of penalties that should have been conceded. So I was a bit frustrated with the refereeing. I won't sugarcoat that. But yeah, I mean, they'll take the bonus point. I think the result the previous night had almost kind of made it, points difference is what it is. It's unlikely to come into the reckoning now. So, I think they done what they had to do. I thought it was poor. They'll need a massive step up against Ireland, but we've got Romania in the way first. So let's scrape 28 points past them, and let's see where we go from there.
It was strange, Johnny, because it's almost like Scotland in the past few years have thrived upon when the game breaks up. But actually, I thought that was where Scotland looked at their weakest when the game lacked structure. They almost didn't know what to do. Until Darcy Gray on and kind of took the game by the scruff of his neck a little bit. But I think there were moments where, Tonga didn't have much shape, but Scotland didn't really seem to know how to respond to that or get around them. And it's almost like by Gregor Townsend and I suppose and Steve Tandy adding a bit more structure to the play, we've lost that kind of ability to almost kind of make stuff up as we go along.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like there was large parts of that game where I couldn't decide whether Scotland were underplaying or overplaying. Like sometimes it seemed like they weren't really bothering and they weren't taking opportunities. And like you say, the play would break down and they didn't really seem like anybody was that bothered to try and work out what they were going to do about it. But then there were also times, like John says, where it seemed like they were trying to force it, they were trying to stick extra points on them and kind of maybe push it a little bit hard for what was in front of them. So it was a weird game. They just seemed a bit out of sorts, I thought.
And Craig, the other strange thing for me was the scrum, and it might be the way it was officiated, but it was hard to get a read on how well the Scottish scrum were doing, because at times it looked like they were demolishing the Tongan scrum, but the referee was just saying the balls, just play. I'm not going to referee that. He didn't really seem to have any interest at all in refereeing the scrum. He's just like, I'm not interested in the scrum today. So long as the ball comes out the back, boys, let's just play on. But actually, I think Scotland had a very strong scrum, but it's without the free kicks and the penalty awards, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I think you have an issue. Well, I've always got an issue with Carl Dixon anyway. I think, unfortunately, someone who believes he's an incredibly good referee shows very regularly that he's not the greatest. He doesn't really know what he's talking about at times. And with a scrum, he's very much a picture person. And so for me, I think from what he was looking at, he was seeing things. Scotland were giving him pictures that, and so were Tonga, that were, although we had a dominant scrum, Tonga were giving him a picture that they were under the cosh by a scrummage. It was Scotland who were scrummaging illegally, and unfortunately, you look at now. I'm going to pronounce his name, and I'm going to get it completely wrong, but it's Tuafanina or Tufan. The scrum, the tight head prop for Tonga.
Ben Taumafina. The big lad.
Yeah. Now he is a world class scrummager. He is very, very good. The problem you have is once he starts getting tired, he becomes very, he doesn't scrummage as well, and so he goes to ground very, very quickly. And so you're looking at Rory Sutherland, who was getting turned in on him on a regular basis, whether it was Rory turning in on him himself or just the weight of the tight head prop coming onto Rory Sutherland, and Sutherland's maybe not had as much game time as he really needs, and it was just painting a bad picture for Carl Dixon. So he was continually pinging us for it.
Is there anything we've learned from that game, John, that we didn't already know?
Not that we didn't already know, but I think it's re-emphasized a couple of things for me. Distribution wise, 13 and 15 caused a lot of problems for us. We slowed up a lot of play. If you're going to play really exciting wingers outside of Chris Harris, you're going to have to miss Chris Harris because he can't pass. If you're going to ask Kinghorn to distribute, you're going to be slowed up. So, you know, you're going to have to utilize Kinghorn's strengths, which are to run onto the ball. Don't ask him to pass. No, I think it was fairly, it was fairly disappointing to see that because, you know, the Scotland attack has got the ability to be one of the best in this World Cup, but it takes, you know, one or two moving parts just to be substituted out for it to go to being pretty nullified. So I was quite disappointed to see that, and I think, you know, I think that'll have confirmed a lot of things for the management.
I mean, I disagree with John on the Blair Kinghorn point. Craig,
Mhm.
I'm going to come to you. I thought Kinghorn had a really good game. I thought that there was the zip pass to Duhan to put him away was excellent. There was the one forward pass, I think, was a little disappointing. He was unlucky to have his try that early try chalked off. Kyle Steyn, I think the jury for me is still out on Kyle Steyn as a starter for Scotland. I think in games against like Tonga, I've no issue with Kyle Steyn starting. I think the claim that I saw one person say that he's one of Scotland's best winger was, I don't know what. I'd love to have whatever that guy's having that I saw on Twitter, but he certainly isn't. He's a very good solid winger. He's a very good bench option if you're looking for cover at centre as well. But I think you saw the difference when Darcy Graham came on.
Yeah, I agree with that, but also where Kyle Steyn comes in and shows his class is when he's going up against, let's say, a smaller opposition. If you put him if you put him in against South Africa or you go against Tonga, etc., who are big hitters, he kept coming inside on a quick pace, thinking he was going to break through them, and they were putting tackles in and putting them back, and they were obviously, it looked like they were targeting him because there was 2 hits going in on a regular basis. So I wouldn't say that I think Kyle Steyn's a bad winger. I think he's a very good winger. I think he should be used with different teams against different teams. Whereas, you know, with Darcy, he's so strong but also so small that if he's up against big hitters, he usually sneaks either underneath them, in between them, or steps them. Whereas I don't think Kyle Steyn has that the dartiness or the ankle breaking step that Darcy has. You just have to look at the other side, and you look at Duhan. Duhan's having to now this running across the field is starting to do my head in a little bit, because he seems to be coming down the wing. He's got full pace. He gets a ball, and then all of a sudden he halts himself and then runs inside. Now, for me, if I was going to, I would like to see Duhan, if he's going to step in, just step in one step and keep running at the same pace, because you're taking a softer shoulder. I just don't see okay, he came across and he started manhandling people and throwing people on the ground, given the pictures that everybody wants to see from Duhan. But his actual rugby playing, I just would like to see him run more with the ball, straighter, if you know what I mean.
There's a bit of a trend. Oh, go for it.
Do Duhan's lateral meters count? And because you know how, like, Tonga's an example actually of where I thought there was quite big periods where Duhan, by his standards, was quite quiet, and then you see stats saying that like he's made like a World Cup record of meters carried. Now, do his lateral meters count for that? Like, if he runs 25 meters in field and then turns up field and goes 10 meters, does he get 35 meters carried for that, or how does that work? Because his carry meters always seem to be a lot better than I thought they were. So either I've missed half his carries, or they're counted all the time he goes sideways.
Well, he's carrying the ball when he's running inside. So, you know, I would say it points in that direction.
So surely the stat should then be meters forward, meters gained, as opposed to meters ran. Because, you know, because your props run lots of meters, just they don't have the ball. You know, you like, how far do you go with that? Like, I think if that is the stat they're using, then it's a completely misleading and false stat. Like, you know,
I think he did come into the game, by the way. I was not saying he was like, I'm not saying he was terrible or anything, but his numbers always seem to be better than watching him suggests.
I think the Duhan thing's a really interesting one, because I think where at risk of. I agree, Craig. I think he does go lateral a bit, but actually, there's a wee bit of a trend in world rugby just now for people to do that, purely because referees are not as hot on the blocking that you're seeing. So, his try in the Six Nations against England is a great example. Years gone by, there's a couple of moves in that try where there would have been blocking called. It's not been called now. So wingers are coming more lateral. I think he should run straighter. But if he's putting in numbers like 21 tries in 33 games and continues to be, one of our absolute devastating attacking weapons, both with ball and without, because defenses are having to triple team him to bring him down, I'm more than happy for him to do whatever the hell he wants. We'll get on to the defensive side of things, I'm sure, at some point, perhaps in Hands of Ruck. Maybe just now, who knows? But I think Scotland fans really just need to, just realise how lucky we are to have this guy.
I don't think
I'm
we're
not saying
unlucky.
these guys. I'm not saying you are saying that.
I don't think that's what we're saying. That it's not. I think it's that if he ran straighter and took straighter lines and didn't come in as much as he does, as Craig said, he would get more tries. He would be a more complete player. I think you look at that last try that Darcy scored, and for all the world it looks like he's dodging and weaving, but his actual movement from where he kind of started his run to where he ends up scoring the try, there's not that much difference in terms of the position, like the kind of position on the field, as it were. Yeah, he's weaving in and out, but the movements are so slight and jinky, whereas Duhan will almost run from the wing to the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is it just needs to sometimes straighten up.
He does, and I don't disagree with you. I would probably counter the Darcy point by saying then that how much of that ability to straighten up and actually, cut lines and be able to break defenses is driven by the fact you've got this guy who is coming looking for work. He is coming inside, and I think that's at the heart of the coming lateral is his way of coming in to look for work now. He's doing this throughout almost every attacking play Scotland have got when he's not on ball. So it's kind of natural that there's now spaces being created because that will draw attention of defences. Centres are having to follow him, and that creates Darcy.
I understand what you're saying, John, and I really do, and I'm being very, very picky here because I'm being incredibly picky. But where the Kyle Steyn, for example, comes into it is that he will come inside, but he doesn't come inside too much. He doesn't stop his run and then start to run sideways. And where one of the it's come up as Facebook user, but there is a comment in the comments, and it says Duhan's encouraged to run inside to target tight five forwards. Well, that's wonderful. Yes, let's go for the slower forwards, but most of the time he's getting caught, put to ground, and the ball's being turned over. Whereas for me, I would far rather see him be used as that. If you look at Bill Mata, for example, different player, but he still has that. He runs and he runs straight and he runs forward. And if you look at the pace that we've got out of Duhan, you look at the pace that we, the strength that we have with Duhan, I feel that he's stronger at pace, running over people rather than stopping, going sideways and trying to find a gap.
And drawing in players only works if you get quick ball, either from recycling at the ruck or an offload.
Well, can we address that point then? Because that's next on my hit list.
Go on, John.
Quick ball from the ruck. Ben White has inherited the Scottish scrum half trait of becoming glacial with his distribution.
I disagree. I think it's a problem with the forwards, and I think we're terrible at providing our scrum halves with clean ball. That's what I've come to realise is I can see the nervousness that Ben White has, that if the ball isn't protected by the forwards, and I do think there's a slowness to get to the breakdown. I do think we're not that great at kind of clearing and protecting the ball. There was a lot of times when Tonga was straight over the top, and we were lucky there a couple of times not to be pinged for holding on. And we got pinged against South Africa for holding on. And it's because the forwards aren't quick enough to get in there and protect the player on the ground. So I can see why Ben White would then be nervous getting the ball away until he was absolutely sure it was safe to do so. Otherwise, he's going to get scragged. You take the opposite as George Horton, who at one point was told off by the referee for trying to milk a penalty by tapping a Tongan while he was lying on the ground.
Yeah.
Standard, really.
So the thing is, like, if there's anything that really needs to be fixed by next weekend, it's that, because the breakdown where Ireland concerned is the Wild West. And I don't know how they do it, but they consistently get away with the most illegal breakdown work in the world. And it does not seem to matter who the referee is or what the circumstance is. Ireland's players are consistently breaking all kinds of laws at every breakdown. And if Scotland can't get that ball recycled quickly and not give them a chance to do that, we are scuppered next weekend.
If you look at what we've talked about consistently over the last couple of weeks, in fact during the Six Nations as well, the referees are not refereeing the breakdown.
Yeah.
And so Ireland are basically looking for chinks in the armour. So if you look at Ireland, and I think France are the same, they are very, very, very close to not rolling away on a regular basis to stop the first defender coming in. Yeah. So it isolates. Also, with from what I can tell, and this might be completely wrong, and Gregor Townsend might come to me, or Brad Moore might come to me and say, "You're talking shite." Not that you're talking rubbish. My apologies, Cammy.
That's me up till midnight.
That's it again.
41:58.
My mum would be upset with my potty mouth. The issue we have is that we are looking for more movement with our forwards. We're using our forwards in a more around the pitch far more than other teams are. So, for example, when they go for when a player takes a ball into contact, the forwards are standing back that little bit more because they're further away from the contact because they're expecting a pass. So they then have to accelerate to get into contact. And the problem you have at the moment across the whole game is you give anybody, any defending player a glimmer of the ball when you go to ground, they are going to go in and try and take that ball and paint a picture to the referee. So on where we bring the forwards closer, they bring the pods closer together so that whenever they go into contact, they're immediately clearing the players out and protecting the ball. Or we have these the arrowhead or the diamond shaped pattern of the forwards. If we have them split up a little bit further so that there's an ability to pass the ball out and move it a little bit further, that's the juxtaposition that we have. Not to get really boring, but
no, but I think that's part of the reason why Xander's been pinged twice now. And had red cards is exactly because there isn't clean presentation of the ball, and because he's having to come from distance to come and help secure the ball. If you arrive late to the ruck, there's always going to be a risk that you're going to have head contact on the opposition player who's trying to steal the ball or trying to interfere with the ruck. So that's the problem. You don't get drawn into those kind of problems if the ball's already clean. You don't have to come from distance as a forward to kind of sort the ruck out if it's already sorted out.
Yeah.
Is there an argument as well that we are? So what do other teams do when they don't have clean ball? The vast majority of the best teams in the world go put that in the air. Let's get that clear. Let's just. I think there was the reason I bring up Ben White. There was a couple of occasions against Tonga where he's had his arm caught during the pass. It was the same against Wales in the Six Nations. He was caught 3 times by Wales. It's something that has happened regularly, and whether it's the forward's fault or not, ultimately it's his job to distribute the ball. And if it's not clean ball, if the situation is not on for him to be able to make a pass, then he shouldn't be taking a couple of steps across, which will then allow him to get scragged. He should be setting someone up. They should be setting a pod of forwards, going for the box kick, or they should be, giving it to Kinghorn, giving it to Russell, and going, let's put the ball down the park and not play from here. Because whilst that's okay against Tonga and okay against, a resurgent tier 3 nation like Wales, it's Yes. It's going to catch us out against a good team, and Ireland will target that, and we will lose points to that. So I just think there's maybe some naivety. If it is ball presentation, White's got a part to play in that. He has to be smarter, faster, whatever it is he needs to do to get that ball away. But it needs to happen.
Where White, I think, is White is very much a George Horn at times. George Horn used to take 2 steps or 3 steps with the ball. He's learned now, especially at Glasgow, the forwards are clearing the ball. He's taking the ball, and his pass comes from the base of the ruck. And that's where White is. Everyone says, "Oh, White's a fantastic loose player. He'll come around, he'll jink, and he'll try and get down the inside." Well, unfortunately, at international rugby level, you're very rarely going to make your way through the defence playing that way. So you need to move that ball, and that's where I agree with you, John. Is that I think I've seen a difference in Ben White when he first came on the scene with Scotland. He passed quickly. And his ruck speed was far quicker. Now, whether we're letting him down, as in the forwards are letting him down with ball presentation, or whether he's had the corners knocked off him, like Ali Price was, with process, box kicking, etc., etc., etc. Whereas George Horn doesn't need to, because George Horn's there for a reason. He's on the bench to come on and be a live wire,
I think the one thing, John, and we've kind of touched upon it in that discussion, that still is frustrating with Scotland, that you see when, and John's alluded to it, we definitely see it with South Africa, and you see it with Ireland, is we're too honest sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
We don't play the boundaries and play the margins. And yeah, I'm not suggesting that we've played the margins before and been on the wrong side of it, but we haven't then been smart enough to kind of tidy it up and sort it out. But we are still being a bit too honest at times, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's what kind of sets us apart. We've said before that there's those 4 big teams, and then there's us, and the gap's closing, but there is a gap between us and everyone below us. Unfortunately, the gap that we're kind of trying to bridge to go up the way is much bigger, and it is because those 4 teams, France, Ireland, South Africa in particular, to a lesser extent New Zealand as well, are just so much more game savvy than us and than everybody else. And like whether that comes from, like John talks about, having better game management, box kicking away when they need to rather than trying to play out of situations where it's maybe not ideal, or whether it comes from being right on the edge of what's legal and working out what they can get away with and what they can't, and getting away with as much as they possibly can. They are a step ahead in their sort of game awareness and their savviness from everybody else, and that's going to be huge for Scotland. Like, that's something we need to work on.
Yeah, and we've got the players that do. I mean the fact, obviously Jamie Ritchie failed his HIA and didn't come back up. I mean, whether he failed it or whether or not they just decided they weren't going to risk him at that point in the game. They said he failed his HIA. He's got return to play protocols to get through, John. But I think the mistake we maybe made with the Jack Dempsey hitting against Australia was that we didn't whip him off the pitch and say he's off for an HIA, referee.
Yeah, the South Africa one. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think you're absolutely spot on, Cam. I think quite often we find ourselves, we're getting better at it from a captaincy perspective, and I think Finn Russell and Jamie Ritchie both have shown over the last wee while more of a propensity to ask the referee and say, "Will you have a look at that?" But that's not enough. You need that national broadcaster putting it up on the big screen. You need the player spending a bit of time. Yes, it's gamesmanship, but do you know what? See, if someone's been clouted in the face, they should be going to get checked anyway. So we shouldn't necessarily be playing on. So I don't think, and yeah, sure, right. Jack Dempsey gets clouted in the face against South Africa, probably goes off, gets checked, and they go, "You're fine, mate," and he comes back on. But the referee will have reviewed the card at that point, and there's more of an opportunity. it's horrible to say it, but it's professional sport, and we need to get smarter. We need to get better at it. We need to, the French are famous for the replays that you don't see in the stand, and it's a running joke, but it's the way it is. Like, everybody's got a part to play in this, sadly, and that sounds cynical and horrible, but we need to get a bit dirtier.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the 2 tackles at the weekend?
Yeah, I think we better. Eh?
So, I think the first tackle on Jamie Ritchie, right, and without getting my where did he touch you dolls out to recreate this, because that's the only way we've got it, because we don't have World Rugby footage to look at. The justification for not upgrading it from a yellow card to a red card was that Jamie Ritchie dipped just at contact. It didn't dip much, Johnny.
No. I don't think he dipped enough to make it not a red card. I think he'd have to be trying really hard to find that, to be honest. And it's a shame, because I actually think the way this bunker system's worked, they haven't wimped out of a lot of decisions recently. I think the majority, it seems like, of decisions that go to the bunker have been upgraded to a red, and they don't seem to be doing the sort of looking for reasons to downgrade it like referees were doing when it was happening live on the pitch. But to me, I didn't see enough in that one to say, yeah, you should leave that a yellow. So it was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, and Craig, I think the other thing is that we've noticed, and Gregor Townsend was quite vocal about this, is referees are just automatically going yellow card, go to bunker. We haven't seen any automatic red cards, and it's not clear whether that's a direct instruction from World Rugby. But it seems daft and mad that the referees can't make those decisions on the pitch.
Yeah, I think this has to be a directive from World Rugby, because this is their flagship competition, and they want as many viewers to not be as bored, and it was getting to a point where we were sitting watching replay over replay over replay over replay over replay constantly to try and work out whether it's his shoulder or if it's his. So I understand why they've done it. The problem I have, and again, tonight's game, I'm not going to spoil the score, but for if anyone's not watched it, but again, there was 2 bunkers, and one of them was a clear red. And you just expect, mind you, the Jamie Ritchie one, and for my, well, again, we go back to Jack Dempsey, those were clear reds. And it basically should just be, there you go, boom, there's a red card, and that's the way it is. And I almost feel that the referees are being downgraded slightly with the bunker system. And okay, it's not very rare for me to come out on the referee's side, but I just feel that there are referees out there that are very, very good. And apart from Holly Davidson, which is ridiculous why she's not there. But I think we really need to see that balance. And I think you'll probably find it at Six Nations time. That balance will be readdressed, because I think World Rugby will back off slightly. But I'm very disappointed in it.
I have to say, I love the bunker.
Could see a murder on the pitch and still give a yellow.
Yes, 100%. Bunker's an opportunity.
I think the bunker is one of the best things they've done.
I agree.
Oh, I've got no qualms about it. Yeah, I've got no qualms about it. No problem with the bunker. It's the problem is that we're not. They've just decided that we're going to refer everything to the bunker. Yeah. And as we saw,
do you know what? To be honest, I'd rather that they just refer everything and most of them get made reds than we spend 5 minutes watching replays with the crowd booing over the top and the ref trying to see it on a big screen that's on the other end of the stadium, and then he finds a reason to downgrade it to a yellow. Like, for me, if you want to make everything a yellow and let someone who's removed from the situation sit there quietly on their own, go through all the angles, and then decide, I'm absolutely bang up for it.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Because I think
Johnny.
you have to take into account what it's like in the stadium as well. Like it's not just the time that it takes to watch all these referrals. Can you imagine if it's a final and France are in the final and one of the French players hits somebody in the head with their shoulder, and then your referee in the final's got to stand in the middle of the pitch at the Stade de France and watch a big screen while 80,000 French people boo and hiss and shout about whether he's going to give a red card or not. I'd much rather if it's even if it is the most stuck on red card you've ever seen in your life, send it to the bunker and let somebody who's not in the middle of that make that decision.
But they're still going up on the screen in the meantime to give the yellow. So if it's a stuck on red card, then just give the red card. You know.
But that's the thing. Like even stuck on red cards, like they're going to the bunker and we disagree with a lot of the decisions that come back from it. We're saying, stuck on red cards that are coming back as yellow.
Do you know what this is? It's because World Rugby are so protective of the footage they don't even want to put up on the big screen. You're going to get shut down as a rugby stadium because you're showing footage of the Rugby World Cup on a screen. So we'll go in the bunker, and the guy in the bunker has to have his paywall subscription.
I have an NDA signed for it, and
so that's why the Jack Dempsey one was missed.
The guy hadn't paid for his Sky Go that month.
It all makes sense.
He'd logged in using his dad's login. Been geo-blocked.
They found him for account sharing and they kicked him out just at the wrong time.
Look, we're going to wrap. I'm going to wrap up this podcast. We've got plenty more to talk about this evening, and we'll be going and doing our Patreon only podcast in a moment. For everyone still who's listened to the main podcast, what we know is that Scotland need to beat Romania with a bonus point. The scoreline and the points difference doesn't matter. They need to beat Romania with a bonus point. The only time that points difference will matter is that South Africa don't beat Samoa with a bonus point, and that's not happening.
Yeah.
So going the last weekend against Ireland, Ireland would be on 14 points. We would also be on 14 points, if my maths is right. And so we would need to beat Ireland.
We'd be on 10 points.
We'd be on 10 points. That's right. So we'd be on 10 points.
Ireland
They'd be on 14. Ireland would be on 14. We'd be on 10 points.
Again, isn't it?
I know. So Ireland would be on 14. We'd be on 10. We go into the last weekend. We have to beat Ireland with either with a bonus point or beat them and deny them a losing bonus point. So we'd end up on 15 points. Because the tiebreaker is not points difference. The tiebreaker is whichever team has won the match, won the head-to-head match.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we beat them, they don't get a bonus,
bonus point. As long as they don't get one, it's okay.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, we don't need a bonus point as long as they don't get one. But if they're going to get one, we need to get a bonus point. That's the way it's done.
I want
them to 0 points. We're fine.
Well, how I want it to go to 15 points each, and we get it because we've won the actual game that we played against them, so that Irish Twitter explodes.
That would be the ideal outcome.
So we shall see. So that's where it stands. We are back next week. We'll review the Romania game. We'll look ahead to that Ireland game.
I've just realised what we want. I'll let you finish that and I'll tell you what we want.
What do we want, Johnny?
We want 28 all in the 79th minute. We want Peter O'Mahony off his feet between the halfway line of the Scottish 10-metre line, and then we want Ben Healy kicking a penalty from our own half to make it 31-28, and we win. That's what we want. So
we would have had what in that scenario? What we've got our try bonus point.
Yep. And they've got a bonus point. And then the tiebreaker is a Ben Healy penalty from inside our half in the last. Oh,
hang on a minute! No, that can't work. They would get two. They get two bonus points, Johnny.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, we don't want that then.
Yeah. No, we don't want that. Take that out of your mind.
No, we want. All right, we want them to be 6 points behind in the last minute, and then Ben Healy kicks a penalty, and they end up 9 points behind. and that's okay.
That's
As
fine.
long as it's not
That I
full
can live
range.
with.
Yeah.
Much better.
That I
much
can live
better.
with.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. On that note, and you can see why these things are confusing. It's goodbye for this week. Like I said, we'll be back next week. For the moment, it's goodbye from me, goodbye from John, Craig, and Johnny.
Bye, all.
Cheers out.